Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our podcast. Welcome, Dr Omer Atilla Ergi.
Hello, Zuleyha.
Today we'll be talking about a very important question. What was God doing before he created the universe? What is your answer to this question?
That is an interesting one, and I have heard this question before as well. Look, from a philosophical perspective and theological perspective, I believe that is a paradoxical question. Because the term doing, doing indicates to a physical activity. So it is like assigning an activity to God, and activities are usually, happen or occur within a certain specific time period.
True.
So there is also assigning a, time for God again.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a paradoxical question, and I think it is anthropomorphic too, because, it is like saying God needs to be active. God needs to do something.
So you think it implies that by saying, what was he doing?
Yes, because one thing that comes to my mind is in regards to this question, when we talk about time, as you know, time is specific to us.
Yes.
or limited to us, because we know from a scientific perspective that the universe that we exist in had a beginning point.
Yeah.
And talking about beyond time is going into waters, that uncharted waters. We don't know what is beyond time. So the question implies sort of that time existed before the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And also God was within a certain time period, a flowing time period, which is, as I said, paradoxical, because if people study the attributes of God, they will see that he is not in need of anything. That's one of the key attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you know, in Surah Ikhlas, we say Allahu Samad, meaning that he does not need anything, everything needs him.
Right.
So a needless being would not need to be doing something, because the term need actually indicates some type of deficiency.
He does not need to create.
He does not need to create. He does not need to do anything, because some people assume that because he is the creator, therefore he creates for eternity. He's been creating for eternity. But again, that is paradoxical as well, because one of his names is Shafi. He heals.
Yes.
He gives, to illnesses, he gives a solution. He heals people. But the thing is, we can't say then there must have been ill people for eternity for that name to be in effect.
It's like the saying, I guess, with a lifesaver. If someone's a lifesaver, they've saved one. They just need to have saved one life to get the title lifesaver. They don't have to save lives every single minute to earn that title. So is that what we're talking about here as well?
Yeah, I think it is a good comparison, because even if they did not save any life at all, if they have that ability, and they're given that, a professional title as a lifesaver, that person is a lifesaver.
They've earned that title.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they need to save someone every day. So, or it doesn't mean it needs to have a beginning. So with creation, we do say Allahu Alam, Allah knows. So from our perspective, because we are limited by space-time, and we know that there is a beginning to our universe, which is, signified by the Big Bang. That's when time began as well. T equals 0, they say. What happened prior to that? Is it possible that God Almighty might have created other universes before our universe? It is a possibility, from our perspective, it is a possibility. He might have created, 1 billion universes. But I don't use the term before, because before is insignificant, because it goes into time again. See, one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or I should say attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, is Qadam. Usually when people describe or define Qadam, they say he always existed. They use that term. He always existed, or he's infinite in the past, or never
pre-eternal.
Pre-eternal.
Yeah,
that's a good term. But I think these terms are still not enough because they still sort of indicate to time.
Time, true.
Because when you say he's eternal in the past, you're indicating a time again. I think the best term for this, which the real definition of Qadam is beginningless.
Right.
That is the right term because God did not have a beginning. Then you don't put him in time because you don't restrict him within a time, flowing time, which means we don't need to assign a certain activity to God and say what was he doing before the universe. As I said, doing, it's something to do with us. Humans always compare things to themselves.
We're constantly projecting, it seems, ourselves because it's like, because in a way we're thinking, oh, I'm doing this now. What was I doing before this? So we're always thinking of God without even sometimes realizing, well, before he created, even the way he created or the way he's managing the universe, I still believe we project, like we're trying to understand how he does it because of how we do things. I guess to some degree, though, we do need to do that so we can relate to him. So there's that fine line, isn't there, between where you need to, there's some sort of, I guess, comparison, but yet you can't compare. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because we were given some qualities, that resemble some of the names of, God Almighty. Some of his names were breathed into us, as the verse says. We breathed our soul into Adam, spirit into Adam. That indicates Allah breathing his names into him. So we can make that comparison, but sometimes we go overboard. We try to, project ourselves, like you said, onto God, and we try to say that, what was he doing? What was he? Allah does not need anything. I think that's what the key word there.
We have to remember that.
Because if he needs something, then he is contingent. But we know that Allah is the necessarily existent being because wajibil wujud. And nothing can be resembled to him because this is all over the Quran, and nothing, we can say that لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. That's a verse in the Quran. So we cannot resemble or compare anything to God Almighty, which means that we cannot use a logic where, things that we need to do, and then we say maybe he needs to do them as well. Again, like you said, we're comparing God to ourselves. And that is why I say we shouldn't ask what was he doing before he created the universe, but we can ask, did he create other universes? Then that is not putting him in time.
Yeah, and it doesn't imply that he has to. It's more like, did he?
That's a good point too, because nothing is obligatory upon him either. He doesn't need to do anything. Needless beings doesn't need to do anything. So he could create if he wanted to. And if he did not create, he would have still been a creator. And we got to think of it from that perspective too. What if he didn't create the universe at all? Because the universe is contingent. It could exist or not exist. It is all about possibilities. If he did not create the universe, he would have still been a creator because he has that ability. So he doesn't need to create to be a creator. But then we would not know that he is the creator. So that is why he created the universe.
It's more for us, not that he still had all those qualities you're saying.
Yes.
Like you can be a compassionate person, but you can be compassionate without having to have expressed it. Is that what you mean? Yes. So like we can't say that because that suggests need as well, doesn't it? Because it's like he needed to do this so that those names could be expressed. No.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't need to.
Like, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, if he did not paint Mona Lisa, is he not an artist? No, he's still an artist. He has that quality. But when he painted Mona Lisa or other paintings, that actually showed he's displaying his art.
Yeah.
So God wanted to display his art. Maybe wanted when it's not a good word. I say he willed. Maybe that's the best term for it. And he created. But if he did not create, he would have still been a creator. That's where the issue is. So I don't believe a question like, what was he doing before he created the universe is valid. I do
Right.
believe they are paradoxical things, but sometimes people do come up with paradoxical
We do.
questions. I remember years ago, disbelievers used to ask some very funny question. Like, can God, create something he cannot lift? You might have heard of before, some weight that he cannot lift.
Yeah.
I remember saying to this person once, I said, "Do you think God is a weightlifter or something?" Illogical questions. It's like, you are asking about the impossibilities. It is like saying, can a woman, for example, be pregnant and not pregnant at the same time? Paradoxical.
Okay.
So, yes, and you would say, yes, God can create, a huge weight,
Yeah.
limitless, and he lifted too. It's a crazy question. It's paradoxical, as I said. So I think this question is
It's
quite
problem.
paradoxical.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a really good. You're basically saying there's a problem with the question. We're asking what was God doing? One, because of the time matter, he's beyond
Yes.
time. And two, we're implying that you have to constantly be doing something.
Yes.
Whereas that's not,
Yeah.
Allah does not have to be doing something all the time.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
interesting and good points. Thank you for your time and
Thank you.
answering that really important question. Thanks. Speak to you next time. Assalamu alaikum.